Okay.
Okay.
So, hey, St. Timothy, this is Pastor Parker, and you see a familiar face here. Say hello, everyone, to Ann.
Hey guys, it's Ann calling you from California. It is really good to be with Parker, and I'm grateful for his invitation to come on and just send my greetings. I hope that all of you are staying well. Think of you often, and it's again just good to be here with you during this time.
So, I haven't told anyone from the church that I'm doing this yet. So, I'm sure they will be very surprised and very happy. Um, so, tell us a little bit about you've been in California since December, right? So, how has that transition been, and how are y'all doing? And before all this stuff happened, what was life like, and how were you enjoying church and all that?
So we moved on December 26th. I began work at First United Methodist in Palo Alto on January 7th. We live about 20 miles from the church, and Nathan's Patagonia store is about 3 blocks from the church. So both of us are about 20 miles from work. We live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and I will tell you what the monthly rent is. It is $3,000 a month. And I kept thinking I need to figure out the square footage. It's probably about 700 square feet.
Wow.
We're here with both of our dogs. We're actually loving it. We are together a lot, but we have great green space outside. We're right across the street from the park, across the street from the kids' school. We have lots of places to walk the dogs. The kids have a playground. We have a pool here, and though it's closed at the moment, we use the hot tub quite frequently already. We've had lots of 80-degree sunny days, so it's going well. I'm part-time at the church. I'm the director of children, youth, and family ministries, and have about the same amount of children as any church, sort of struggling to find that place, but they really wanted to emphasize that ministry and to reach out to families who are still there and try and reach some new ones. So been working a couple days a week at the church, and then also doing some stuff at home. But my big plans, which are on hold for the moment, was a big community-wide Easter egg hunt. But we are just to go ahead and move into that, living into a new reality in which we are have a statewide ban on leaving our homes. They are not enforcing that through the police, but have asked us to, quote, stay put, stay in place. And so we are trying to honor that. School is out. Nathan is not working right now. Patagonia is closed for 2 weeks, and I'm just working from home. We're doing a lot of Zoom calls. And we're not quite sure what the future holds, but we're just trying to be present together during this, and still taking lots of walks.
Yeah, well, great. Well, yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time, and I know California's been hit hard by some of that. So tell us a little bit about how, you're processing this. Some of this has impacted you and your community a lot earlier than us.
Right.
So I would imagine that you and your church and your ministries had, this has been going on for a little bit longer. So tell us a little bit about how you and your church and you all in your community have been processing this, and, just how you're trying to continue to do ministry in this new reality.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, we're trying to remain hopeful. The senior pastor at the church is full of joy in life, and she is really emphasizing that in the midst of all of this, we have a real opportunity to continue reaching out to people, to be the people who are sharing hope with our community. She actually stood out on the street yesterday morning with a sign that said overflowing hope. And she got lots of people waving back at her and honking their horns. And so just trying to be a voice for even when we feel overwhelmed with the feelings of not knowing what's coming or feeling anxious about staying home, that we still have a message for people, and that this is not the end, or that God's still here with us in this, and that we can look for really joyful things in it. I know I really appreciated this week for all 4 of us to be home. I keep adding the caveat that ask me again in a couple weeks how I feel about that. But at this point, we have slow mornings. We're eating breakfast together. We're eating dinner together. Usually Nathan would work retail hours and not get home till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So it's been really nice to kind of slow down in that way.
Yeah.
We are really embracing Zoom calls at our church. So we're doing Zoom call check-ins every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. So anyone in the church can get on and we call it a community chat and check-in. And people have had fun with that. And someone showed us their quilt they're working on this last week. And
that's a great idea.
Yeah, we have 2 Bible studies going, and some of our small groups are even working on Zoom. The technology, we've had to get everybody up to speed on that. But Zoom, I've already probably been on about 15 Zoom calls and listened to some live music from a church member, played his guitar for us on Wednesday night. And he sent lyrics ahead of time and we all sing along. So nice. There's some real creative things that we can be doing during this time.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Our conference has given us a 3-month pro version of Zoom.
Okay.
So that I can have unlimited calls and minutes. And I would love for St. Timothy folks to get on Zoom and we can do that chat and check-in thing that Ann was talking about. I'd be interested to hear a little bit about your experience with both Christianity and Methodism in California in the CalPAC conference. Tell us a little bit about how that's similar or different to Western North Carolina and what that's been like in that environment and culture.
Okay, well, first I would say that it is similar in that church is church everywhere. So, and it's Methodist, so we follow we have the same committees, and our liturgy on Sunday morning looks very similar to everything I experienced in North Carolina. Church folk are the same everywhere. They just want to be loved and come to worship and be in community. So I could say a member here could very easily be a member of a Methodist church in North Carolina. I will say that there seems to be a sort of a hesitation of being labeled as a Christian because of some negative connotations that they're seeing. California is known as a liberal part of the country. And so there is, I think, a misunderstanding of Christianity, and that it means that you are scared of people who are different from you, or that you need everybody to believe the same thing. And we know that's not true, that our Christianity can embrace a real diversity. But here is sort of there's a lot of hesitation that we not be labeled as people who are closed-minded. And so there's been some interesting, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there's definitely been some conversations in my church now where it's like, can we not talk about sin so much? And if you didn't talk about Jesus so much, my Buddhist friends might come, which to me are like, no, we're at the church. We have, a certain message. But I can say that there's people here who are much more uncomfortable with traditional Christianity. But I think if they knew who Jesus really is, that they would really embrace all of that.
Yeah. And that, I just feel like that really speaks to, I feel like a very robust Trinitarian theology would speak to that because of the diversity that we find in the Trinity among the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They are not the same. They're different, and yet they embrace each other, and they welcome us, who is a stranger and an other, into their life. And so that's a really interesting environment to be in. So one of the questions I've been wrestling with through all of this is that I feel like there's been, the last few years, there's been this kind of catchphrase in different parts of life, the being a non-anxious presence, right? Mm-hmm. And that's such a wonderful phrase that we should live out and model. And yet there's also the reality of, in this kind of world situation, of things that we need to do, and the reality of social distancing and, cleaning things and not shaking hands, and the fact that our lives have been radically changed temporarily. So how would you talk about how we would balance this kind of being a non-anxious presence, and yet also recognizing the need for really radical changes in everyday life?
Okay. Um, I think first and foremost, we can be non-anxious when we interact with other people. Um, I think when I see the hoarding at the grocery stores, I don't know if you are there yet, but here it was, fighting over toilet paper. I think as we interact with other people, as we interact with people on Facebook, I see a lot of anxiety on Facebook and commenting, and that we can be non-anxious presence in that way. Or even just calling people. And I think once people sort of speak with one another on the phone, just being encouraging of one another is a great way for us to practice being non-anxious in this time. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think it's okay for us to acknowledge that we're anxious. I have days where I feel more anxious than others. I think it's the unknown, or the long-term game plan. What does this look like in a month from now? And I have to stop myself, and I have to say, this is a day by day. And I know that all of us can find joy in our daily life, even if it's in small ways. I think it's important for us to find the joy and help other people to find it.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I find myself, when I think about the kingdom of God, we talk about the kingdom of God being a kingdom of abundance, right? And not scarcity. But that is so hard to live into, right? And to actually embody that in everyday life, because we do have this kind of natural gut reaction to hoard, or to take care of ourselves and our family, and to get the toilet paper before it runs out.
Right.
And yet Jesus is always talking about the ways in which there is enough, and there's more than enough. And that's not just a kind of spiritualized, like, oh yeah, there's love and compassion, but there's not enough like resources. There are, if we learn how to share and embody that. So
even in our own congregation, people have sent emails saying, I've got extra toilet paper, I have extra hand sanitizer. There's more than enough. We really worried about older folks not being able to get out and shop because they would be nervous about being exposed. And so we sent an email saying, if you need someone to shop for you. And while there was some of that need, most people were like, we have enough, or my neighbor just came over and brought me some items and we're going to be okay. So, and even here, shelves are being replenished, and grocery stores are staying open. So it just feeds into our need to like hold on and hoard, and it's just not necessary.
Yeah, like we're gonna fill our houses with all this food that we're not gonna be able to use all of it, need all of it. And I've been mindful too. Both people in our church, probably in your church, people in our community. As I've been in contact with Shelley Webb and Sharing House, and the clients there, people in our, this seems to be impacting people who are the most vulnerable. It seems to be kind of revealing some of our privilege and some of this that we have, that we don't have to worry about housing or food really, or in my case, like medical issues. So is your church doing anything, or do you have any thoughts on like how we care for the most vulnerable in a time when we can't always be physically with them, but still recognizing that there are ways that we need to care for the most vulnerable in our communities?
We have a really neat ministry. There are a lot of homeless youth in the San Francisco area. A lot of them are LGBTQIA and come to this area thinking that this is going to be a safe place for them, and in reality it's not. And there are actually not enough resources. I think you may have heard in the news about a lot of homelessness in San Francisco. So we have a ministry where we put together food kits and hygiene kits and deliver them to the homeless in Palo Alto and throughout the Bay Area. So we are continuing that. And I sent an email to the kids this week in the congregation asking them to make homemade cards. And we're going to have a box outside the church for them to come and drop the cards off. But I know the senior pastor and the coordinator for this project went out last night and delivered 20 of these kits just to people living on the street. And also just to know that some people aren't getting the same information all of us are. they reported back that some of these kids were not being allowed in stores and thought it was because they were homeless, not because they are doing social distancing where they only let a certain amount of people in the store at a time. And so they're not getting the correct information. And so I think it's just making sure all of our neighbors know that they are cared for and loved for, and helping people get the right information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the sharing house here they're still open, but they're not letting people come in.
People come in. Yeah.
So Shelly and the staff are still in there, and the volunteers are still in the building, and they're addressing needs, with people who come by.
But that probably causes some anxiety for the clients. I mean, not knowing why they can't come in, or are we dirtier than other people? There's all kind of connotations that they come out.
Right. Yeah.
And I think we've got to work. I mean, even, at this time, I'm realizing even some of the most vulnerable means small business owners, and really true local small businesses who have had to close.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
What impact that is going to have long term.
Alicia and I have talked about how we can support local businesses. Someone told us that the Mills River Creamery really needed, people to come and buy their products. And so when we need, dairy and milk and things like that, we're going to try to go by there. Or if we need to get food out, we'll try to get Blue Smoke, which is amazing barbecue. So we're going to try to hit that up. But yeah, that's a huge thing. The economy and unemployment is going to be very real, and supporting people who are vulnerable, I think, is really important.
The hourly staff, I mean, those are the people that are gonna end up being, temporarily laid off, or it may be longer term.
You talked about hope a little bit, and I think that is interesting to think about how I might frame it like, I think the church, especially in America, is at a time where there could be we could make some really positive and creative changes that could bring new life into the church and into ministry. But in many places, maybe not where you are anymore, but especially here in the South, we're still holding on to this really kind of like Christendom approach to a lot of things, right? And just kind of expecting people to do certain things. And I wonder if this might be an opportunity where Christians in the church find new ways to do things and new creative or innovative ways, and we start to use technology a little bit more and other things that could really benefit in ways that we might not have been so immediate, and these changes had not have happened.
Yeah, we're experiencing. I mean, so the congregation where I serve is actually very traditional, and they had a very high order of worship service. The liturgy was, there may have only been 80 people in the congregation, but there's a 30-person choir who sings like classical Bach every Sunday. And the senior pastor, who's been there for 1.5 years, has been concerned that we're not reaching new people with, staying so close to our, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we have to do it. So even today we were talking about, what is communion going to look like on the first Sunday, April 4th? And so how can we do a love feast online? How can we try some new things that they may not have, we've always done communion the first Sunday of every month. Okay, well, what if this time we have a love feast and people are doing that at their kitchen tables, and really being excited about this is allowing us to try some new things. I think it's not just technology, but it's like, how do we use this technology in new, great ways? I've been with like small groups and prayer groups, and
I mean, it's really challenging. Because I feel like so much of my understanding of just even what church and ministry is just this very physically embodied presence with one another, being with each other, being in each other's lives, whether it's worship or Sunday school or going to Sharing House or Bread of Life and making food for people, or being with Davidson River School. And with this change, it's very hard to kind of envision what church should be like, and I'm especially aware of people in our church who don't really want to or know how to use technology that well, and they're going to be very isolated. So it's going to be very challenging to figure out how we navigate that, I think. So.
Well, I've seen a couple of great posts on Facebook, just reminding people that snail mail still works. You can still call people on the telephone. We're asking people in our church to pick up their church directory and call the person after them, and to check in with them. So I know St. Timothy is already really good at staying in touch with everybody, but and amongst yourself, but maybe call someone you've never thought to pick up the phone and call before and check in on them, or someone who comes to mind and, think, hey, I should give that person a call today.
Yeah.
And send letters. I mean, as far as I know, the United States Postal Service is still working, and they say there's a low threat for touching letters. So, and of course, we know not to touch our mouth and to wash our hands and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I think we can still send cards. I know St. Timothy is great at that.
Yes.
So live into those strengths too. Just keep doing it.
Although I will say, prayer group, please send your cards from home. Please, listen to the bishop. That's very important. So, well, any other thoughts or, sorry, are you saying something right
Yes, now? I was talking to Nathan. He just came in. He was trying to get the dogs. I said, honey, I'm on the video. I should have had him say hello to you all.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love to see him.
I'm sure my face looked funny right at that moment. This is the perils of Zoom calls from home.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're all like, I didn't really know how to use Facebook Live until this week. So, I mean, I've done it a couple times, but.
So thank you all.
Any other thoughts or things you want to share with St. Timothy before we go?
No, I mean, it's great to be with all of you, and I'm grateful for Parker for giving us this opportunity, and thankful for technology. We've said that a lot in our congregation the last week, and here's another wonderful example. With the gift of Zoom, here we are able to talk with one another, and then able to share this with you at your house. And I just encourage you to keep being the church and keep loving one another and sharing God's love with others. Connecting people with God's love.
There it is. You still remember.
There it is. I got it.
Well, thanks for your time. And I know everybody will love to see you. And maybe we can do this sometime again.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you, Parker.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.